Ooh, what's happening, man? Um, Man, there's a bunch of shit I want to talk about. There's a bunch of shit I want to talk about. I wrote notes to remind myself of shit. Um, I don't know if I can get to them though. I don't know if I can go to a different window while I'm live. So, pointless endeavor, huh? Um, I'm gonna start with the shit that I can remember though. I don't know why I keep telling stories about these interactions that I have, but uh, they make me think. I interact with y'all and it makes me think. And not specifically, the people that have started to listen to me talk a little bit, but like just interactions in general. Um, Even just saying that reminded me of another one. But I've already kind of talked about that. Christians hanging out. Religious people, not just Christians. Religious people hanging out in comments. That shit is weird to me, bro. That shit is weird as fuck to me, bro. Actually, I will kind of touch on that one because it's a little bit different. Um, Even the people that I don't necessarily agree with fully, um, sometimes I'll keep following because I want to, take in as much information as I can. But somebody, I think it was Conjure Queen or some shit, she posted a video talking about, she kind of presented it as if it was her theory, but it's a really old Gnostic, uh, Gnostic principle, kind of referencing Yaldabaoth and the Pistis Sophia and all that theology. But she was like, what if the God that you know is the devil, and what you've been told is the devil is the true God, and so on, so on, so on. And you know, not necessarily going into whether or not I subscribe to that, though. I talk about Gnosticism all the time, so I guess you already know the answer to that. But there was a chick in the comments that did that thing where they're like telling you basically to follow Jesus, and Jesus is the only way, and so on, so on, so on. And I whether she believes that or not, that's not really what got to me. What got to me is that you follow this person, so like that don't feel weird to you to follow people that you don't agree with, and then like hang out in their comments to start arguments with people. That shit's just weird to me, bro. I don't know. Anyway, um, I was talking to this person. We had a really good conversation, like a good build actually. But I noticed he was doing this thing where like instead of anytime I try to like tell somebody something that I'm interested in, I don't even have to necessarily believe the shit, but if it's a theory or if it's a personal theory, like something that I'm kind of starting to think, maybe the case or maybe true or whatever, I don't position it like it's the absolute truth. Does that make sense? Like if I take like the Conjure Queen thing, let's say that was me making that video, right? And she kind of did do it this way, so I do respect that. She said, "What if?" And that makes a big difference in the implications of your statement, in the implications of your hypothesis. If you start telling people that what you think or what you believe or what your research has led you to, if you start positioning that as fact, I won't say it's wrong, though I believe it's wrong, but it's definitely weird. And what made me think about that was, like I said, I'm talking to this dude, um, and it was a good conversation. It wasn't negative. We had, even when we disagreed, it was like a debate, you know, and um, it sprouted from him kind of like, I don't. It depends on if you've studied this shit or not, but like there are a lot of people that'll tell you you signed a soul contract. You chose to be here right now at this very time, and you have a mission to fight evil and all this other stuff. And it wasn't really about whether or not I disagreed with that or agreed with that. What struck me was he's telling me, he's not saying he signed a soul contract and he's here to fight evil and so on, so on, so on. He's telling me, you signed a soul contract. You chose to be here. You chose all the things that are happening to you right now to teach you lessons and all this stuff. And it's like, I, I'm not one to shoot down theory because you'll never figure out anything if you don't think, if you don't ponder, if you don't, you know, try to make sense of things by trying out theories and hypotheses. And you know, if something seems a little more tangible, you maybe go try out a system, whether it's a system of belief, a system of magic, or whatever it might be. And I'm gonna get to talking about magic too. That reminds me, I want to talk. I want to talk about magic. That shit. Um, but it just kind of struck me because he had this whole narrative, and it's not to say that he came up with the narrative. You've heard Rashad Jamal say it. You've heard, you know, Young Elder say it. You've heard Rod Hayes say it. Like a lot of people have said that. I do think it's interesting that somebody that I consider to be, two people that I consider to be master teachers, that I consider to be people that I studied under, don't say that. They don't allege that at all. They don't think or tell people you signed a contract for this and you can't be upset or dislike your experience because you asked for it. Bobby Hemmett and Brother Panic, they don't say that. In fact, they say something very, very different from that. Um, and I mean, I just posted a screenshot of me listening to Brother Panic. Kind of, I don't know if he was discovering or rediscovering Gnosticism, but it was a beautiful thing. Like he broke down some shit off that was things that I hadn't come to that approach or that angle from. So that was really cool. So if you see that post, it's like a 5 or 6 video, um, like a 5 or 6 video series. It's not on his. It's not on Occult Lectures. That's Panic's YouTube channel. It's not on that though. If you just look up the title that's in that screenshot, you'll find all the videos. But I just think it's interesting that this culture is kind of being shaped within the people that are studying metaphysics and alchemy and the occult and magic and all that shit. Everybody's telling each other very uniform stories. And, you know, like, if you have listened to me talk at all, you know I think from different angles. I try to think from different angles because, you know, I don't know. I don't know why. My brain just always did that. But who... I know that these theories, these thought systems, these thought forms, these egregores, all this stuff, I know they come from places because I study a lot of text, as I'm sure many of you do. But who is currently pushing those themes? Do you get what I'm saying? Like who is, why are those so prevalent? Like why is everyone telling each other that they signed soul contracts? And I'm not saying I don't understand that those are common and popular themes, you know, with the card readers, the palm readers, you know, the channelers and all that stuff. But, you know, my opinion on a lot of those people are that they're, you know, a lot of them maybe have a little bit of ability that they're stretching to make money. Because if I see you making money off the thing, it's not necessarily that I have a problem off that. It's that you're not doing a reading. You're making a very broadly painted video. So to kind of position it like every single person, I'm gonna keep using the same example, signed a soul contract. I just think that's weird, because if you really get into metaphysics, just metaphysics, um, you're assuming that every being that touches this video that you made, or every being that you know have in your live stream or whatever, is the same, that they're the same type of being, and that just mathematically doesn't make sense. And it doesn't make sense for what a lot of those people say. A lot of those people are telling each other and telling their viewers that there's all kinds of species and aliens and shit walking around. And I'm not saying that that's not possible by any means. It makes more sense than just, you know, what you consider to be humans walking around. But for instance, what if I'm God? You know, like, if I'm God, then why would I need to sign a soul contract to be here, right? If a person, if a being that's like walking around in the flesh is, um, you know, Azathoth, or uh, what is it, Pazazu, I think, or Azazel, you know, like whatever. They don't need to sign soul contracts to be here? I'm assuming they can come and go as they please. So it's just weird to me how everyone is going, just kind of running with these common themes of why all of the beings that they see walking around here are here. It's not to say that those things, they obviously exist. And it's not to say that sometimes that's not true. But I guess taking it back to what made me think this is like, why, if you're talking to me and you assume, for one, let's say that, because I already knew all of the stuff that this person said to me, as concepts. I already knew of them as concepts, deeper than they explained it. But why are you assuming that that applies to me? All you can do, really, and by you I mean the royal you, like all of us, all we can do is go off of our own experience and our own, you know, research. It doesn't make any sense to then point at another person and regurgitate the same narrative. Like, even in religious systems, there's a popular theme where it's like you got to be careful about how you treat people, because, you know, there's the, I don't know if I call it a parable, but it's like, you know, a person gives a random homeless person $20 and they turn out to be God, you know. It's the same concept as that. Like, it doesn't make sense to me to apply a narrative that resonates with you or that you think is true to everyone, especially if you also hold the belief that there are many different types of beings and entities sharing this place with you. That doesn't make sense. Uh, and it was kind of strange because it took a good bit of like back and forth to get that like concept to make sense to the other person. Like pretty much all I was saying to them, and this wasn't like a fight or an argument or any of that. Just they didn't seem to get what I meant. Like you're applying what you've studied and what you've experienced to me, and just by the rules of what you are asserting to me as part of that narrative that you believe, that doesn't make sense. Because if we all came here for an experience to learn, as pieces of, or fragments of the first, then every you're saying every experience is different. So if you're saying that every experience is different, then just off of that, you can't look at another person and say you signed a soul contract and this and this and this and this, because that's a narrative. That's it's a storyline, and that's making it seem as though everyone has the same storyline. That just doesn't really make any sense. And I'm not picking on that one person. It's I've noticed it in basically everyone that's kind of in these circles. Like everyone is sharing that same one narrative where we sign this soul contract, and it's not always the same, but someone's coming back to assist us, or there's already someone inside you that's going to come out to assist you, or just things that don't really make sense for other things that the same people say. And that's stuff that I notice, and it's specifically something that I've noticed more lately, because what's making it stand out to me more is that other people aren't noticing it when it's happening. Like when they're hearing it, it's almost like they're latching on to the parts of it that they like, and then the parts that don't make sense, because they like the entirety of it so much, it like bounces off their ears or bounces off their brain. Like the contradictions don't stick, but the good parts stick. And that, again, it seems like a very religious mindset. And they're my teachers said that people are gonna take the steps to get out of religion and get out of these cults and brainwashing techniques and all these things that have been done to many of us. And that makes sense. It's, to expect to leave an entire lifetime of, you know, being formed a certain way, conditioning, to leave an entire life of conditioning in a month or in a year of studying some other shit wouldn't make any sense. So I'm not shitting on that. I'm just, I feel like it would help me if I were doing that, and I do that sometimes. If I were doing that, it would help me to hear somebody say those contradictions, or to remind me that not only am I, just taking in knowledge and gnosis, but also that it is an experience and it is different for every person, and that it doesn't make sense to apply what I've been through or what I know to a stranger, let alone another person, or another being that I've known for years, even. I don't know. I just think that's weird. And I mean, I try not to think too deep into it because it really doesn't matter for me personally, on a large scale. But it does. That's one of the many things that's like indicative of some counterintelligence. some tampering going on. And, that's something that I subscribe to. It's not just a theory to me. It's not just something that I'm like, oh, I wonder about that. There are things like that I have. And that was another point that I made to them, is like, you can go off experience and that's true to you. But you can't tell me that that's true for me. That makes no sense. What are you basing that on? But if you have something to base it on, like my theories about the counterintelligence and the, slight tampering with the physics, metaphysics, all these, I'm not going to keep naming them all, but all these communities that are having these resurgences and breakthroughs and all that shit, those agencies fuck with everything. So why would I assume that they wouldn't fuck with this? Why would I assume that they wouldn't put people, and I'll say the word people in that sense because fuck them, but why wouldn't they put people out there to make videos and content that fucks with your head, especially when it has to do with this stuff, because these are positive focuses, trying to figure out who you are and what you are, where you came from, what you believe your soul to actually be, to actually encompass. That's a positive pursuit. They don't like that. You're not supposed to be pursuing anything like that. You're supposed to be a good worker, slave. You're not supposed to think too deep. You're supposed to eat as much of the bullshit as you can, and so on and so on and so on. So, plus there's, I tend to look for examples of the thing. I tend to look for evidence of the thing happening before. And I mean, once you apply that, there's been too many instances of counterintelligence, of agents being sent into certain movements and I don't know, thought systems. I don't know if I'd call this a movement necessarily, because ain't nobody trying to do shit for real, but whatever you want to call this stuff, a resurgence of thought and philosophy, I guess. I think that it's more than probable. It's not just possible. It's not just probable. To me, it's confirmed. But I can't, again, I can't tell you that for you. I can just go off of what I've studied, what I've seen, what I know, what I've been through, and it's just very obvious to me. So I think that that's a big supporting detail, the fact that everyone's kind of regurgitating the same shit. And that's not absolute. They could be regurgitating the same shit because it's the actual truth. Maybe everybody's coming to the same results in different words. Within semantics, everyone's coming to the same results. But that's not very likely to be, because most people don't really study shit. They just watch videos and TikToks, and then they regurgitate that same information without checking it out for themselves, which is real weird to do, to be honest, because who's to say a troll doesn't make a whole video talking about some shit and really do a good job with it, sprinkle some true shit in there, but then a bunch of goofy shit, and then they got niggas coming out, repeating that shit. That would actually be kind of funny, but not funny. Not really funny. It'd be funny for the first minute, and I'd be like, what the fuck? But yeah, man, I see that a lot. It's very strange to me. And it's it's nuanced, you know, because there are certain situations where a thing doesn't have to be true, but accurate. Like, for a minute, I had this whole thing going where once I realized that there's a difference between, you know, um, depictions of, um, the devil or Satan or Lucifer, I really thought other people needed to know that because it's a big brainwashing tool. The use of the concept of Lucifer, and it's a misconception. It's a misconception and miseducation. I really thought people could benefit from hearing that, and I took a couple steps too far in trying to like get that out there, which is funny because now more people are talking about it, which is weird, but more people are talking about it, and I think I've said it in something I put up already as far as my YouTube shit goes, which is mainly what this is for. But it's three completely different concepts. I won't even say energies or beings or even though those things are true, but it's three different concepts that have been misconstrued to keep specific believers in line. Luciferian and Lucifer are more popular to say now than the devil or Satan, which are the true. That's what they actually mean when they say Lucifer or Luciferian. A lot of the time people say those words and they don't even know what they mean. They mean the devil, what they have conceived to be the devil or perceived to be the devil. And Lucifer is like, out of those three, the farthest from that. That's the funny shit about it. It's like proclaiming that you want to remain ignorant. And by that, I don't mean like, oh, support Lucifer or you're ignorant. I'm saying Lucifer as a concept is knowledge. Light bringer, morning star, like those are, this is all, it's all symbolism, and within that symbolism, Lucifer is associated with knowledge, not specifically being the adversary. Satan or Shaitan or the devil, those are adversaries. And even then, those stories are very warped. Like, people talk about these things and they don't really study at all to know what they're talking about. If you're basing your words or argument or your video content or whatever on shit you read just specifically out of the Bible or the Quran, like, you're working from from a point of you're working from a basis of fabricated and heavily doctored, censored text. Like, and that's not even a secret. I'm not like dropping a gem on you when I say that. Y'all niggas know that the Bible was edited like a motherfucker. You know that. The Quran as well. Like, these texts weren't just compiled from other texts. They were edited heavily in their conception and then afterward. Some of the niggas that edited it just did it so they can do what they wanted to do. Divorce. Divorce is a concept that a nigga wanted to divorce his wife, so he was like, yeah, that shit's legal now. Like, it just doesn't, there are plenty of people sharing interesting, illuminating information. There are way more people just regurgitating shit that they saw somewhere. And that's very strange to me because it's not just like they're regurgitating it to make money. They believe that shit. They didn't really confirm it for themselves. They heard someone else say it, and then from that point on, that's the truth to them. And how is that any different from, you know, Judaism or Christianity or, you know, whatever, fill in the blank? Like, how is that any different than that? If you don't go and find out all that you can to support that, then it's just you repeating some shit you heard or some shit somebody instilled in you. It's very, very weird to me. I don't know. I wish this shit would tell me how long I've been on here so I can, like, know when to switch topics, but what the fuck ever. I'll just keep coming back like I've been doing, bruh. This shit's gonna be all over the place. Can I go to the... Oh, I can. I can go check. Alright. So, magic. I don't transition at all, nigga. I don't think that's gonna change either. I don't think I'm interested in transitioning for real. That's too much thought to take me out of it. And then I'll just start babbling. So magic, right? I don't know if that's the route that I wanna, the angle that I wanna come at it from, but I'm still gonna say what I was about to say. That's another thing that everybody's kind of like tossing to each other. The concept of magic, practicing magic and whatnot. And the popular like trope, or it's not a trope, the popular archetype that I see in people that say that they are, you know, practitioners of magic, or, you know, more than they're adept magic practitioners. Asserting that they're initiated into different magic systems. Some of them talk as if they're holding a secret. I can't tell if it's, you know, intentional just to like kind of rope more people in, make more money, or if they're holding it like it's an occult secret. But like magic is mostly psychology. Magic is mostly alchemy. And by alchemy, I really just mean psychology, nigga. Like, when you... This was disappointing to me. I guess I want to say that. Because I don't view myself as being... And this isn't me. I'm not saying this shit at anybody in particular, period. I'm not saying it at anybody. This is just how I feel about the thing. I don't consider myself to be a weak-minded person. And that might sound like it's coming off as harsh, but I don't mean it as harsh. If you end up feeling like that, I don't know what to do to help you with that. That's some shit you gotta work out on your own. But I don't consider myself to be a weak-minded person. And in that, I don't mean like, can you take some negative shit or something like that. I mean, what I've found in, you know, loosely looking into magic systems is that it is largely symbolism for you unlocking parts of your own psyche and anthropomorphizing deities to do as like representations of those parts of yourself. And again, it's not to say that I'm saying to other people you shouldn't need that, or so on, so on, so on. But at the same time, why, with all the, why are we still doing the occult thing, the occult part of it? Why it's not hidden anymore? There's a grip, there's a gang of books, public, books. Many of them are not public, some of them are not even in publication. A lot of them, actually. Anything worth a fuck is not in publication anymore, actually. So I'll admit that. But even then, a lot of that information, a lot of the gnosis, or I won't call that gnosis, actually, a lot of the information and science that exists, as far as magic goes, is just psychology. Even the ones that are so big that you're maybe even loosely familiar with, like Crowley and the OTO and all that shit. Nigga, that's psychology. Even the stuff that he worded to be literal is not literal. It's not literal. It's a thin line, because it can end up being literal because of how you apply, your brain to it. Meaning, okay, so I'm gonna try to remember. I'm gonna tell this story. I'm gonna tell this story about Crowley doing a fucked up ritual and what it sounds to me like actually happened. But just to touch a little more on what I mean by that, like, if you look into specific rituals or specific practices, like working with the Goetia, or working with daemons, summoning demons. A demon is a genius. A genius is within you. That's a part of you. That's your higher self, they call that. Or another way to reference it is your holy guardian angel. Like, these are all just you. These are all just you. It's within you. And it's not to say that I don't believe in, obviously, if I'm so interested in all this shit, obviously I have my own beliefs and truths and all that shit. But like I said, I try to be real. I'm a pessimist. I try to be a realist, a true pessimist about the things that I entertain. And it's not to say that I'm talking shit on something if I have to share a position or a thought that is not popular. And I know this shit's finna not be popular, because magic is fucking popping right now. Niggas getting into magic heavy right now. And do that. If you need to do it that way, then do that, because there's benefits to it. I'm not saying there's not benefits to it. What I'm saying is, why does it still need to be shrouded in semantics? Why does it still need to be shrouded in symbolism? Them niggas did that because they would go to prison if they talked about what they were doing. They didn't do that to sound cool or to fucking impress people. They did that because they would, if they didn't go to prison, they'd probably get fucking knocked off. They get killed. That's why a lot of these stories and allegories exist, because them niggas couldn't say that shit outright. Plato almost had like a whole language of stories and poems. And if you know how to read those, then he's saying something different than the literal text. A lot of what people think is Plato's work ain't even Plato's work. How the fuck you got all this text from Plato if what he was talking about was illegal? In fact, Plato said himself, if someone comes to you alleging that they are a student of mine, that man is a lie. He said that out of his own mouth. But as time goes, people just start making shit up and alleging that they found this secret shit or whatever it might be, and they forget the words of the actual being that they're talking about and start believing the words of the opportunist. That shit's sad, you know. It doesn't matter how much attention or respect or whatever you want to call it you earn through your work. It can still be manipulated soon after you're not able to be referenced. If someone can't come and ask you what you meant or get you to explain your own work, someone can very easily twist that shit the fuck up real quick, like not very long after you're gone. And I don't mean dead necessarily, just gone. If you're not around to, like Bobby Hemmett, people twist that nigga shit up all the time. People say he's dead, and that has not been confirmed. People say he got murdered. Like, this shit is weird. People just need for things to be involving them so much that they'll say whatever. And it's not to say whether I know if any of that stuff with Bobby is real or not. That's not my point. My point is, you don't either. So why would you make a whole video about how you think Bobby's dead and you have no evidence to? I watched the whole, not the whole video. I turned that shit off actually, but I watched a pretty decent amount of this video. This chick basically just saying, "I believe Bobby was murdered," and then she started talking about how she channeled it and all this shit. It's just, when does the line, the thin line, become dashed? When does the thin line disappear between, metaphysics and all this shit and I won't say mental illness, but like just you doing a thing for yourself, like to make yourself feel important or to make yourself feel better from trauma or to, chase wealth or recognition or whatever. Like when does the line completely blur between those things? It's just very strange to me. And I say that I guess I came to this because there are only a few reasons that I feel like people can still be relying on all these occult crutches. And I don't, by that, that's not the right way to say that shit. By that, I don't mean the practices themselves. I mean the wording. Like, why don't you just, I guess you don't even have to say if you're working with you're summoning demons. You don't have to tell people that that's just doing some psychology on yourself. But if a person asks you what magic is or what summoning a demon is, that's the only time you'll hear people say that. And so many people think when they say, "Oh, I summoned, Azazel yesterday," it's like they're trying to sound cool more so than like really have a talk about what they did. But if you know what to ask, or if you're watching their content, which is a big one, or if specifically if you're paying them, then they'll tell you, "Oh, these are just aspects of you. These are all just aspects of you. It's pieces of your psyche that may or may not be easy to access." And so you're doing these rituals that, depending on how far back it goes, in practice, may or may not have some science or technology, organic science or technology attached to it to unlock a part of your brain. That's all that shit is. So all this fear and fear mongering and weird arguments and fights and shit people are having about magic and devil worshiping and all this little goofy shit, like most of that's not even true, bro. That's why I see that shit in comments and it's just, you sound dumb. you know, because you're arguing from a position of knowing what you believe. You don't know shit about what the other person believes or the system that they use or none of that. So you sound dumb. You're arguing from a position of ignorance. It's and it doesn't have to be that. You could go study this shit. Just because you study something doesn't mean you believe in it or practice it. Go look at the Roman Catholics. The Roman Catholics have more fucked up shit in the Vatican than anyone anyone else on the planet. You know that don't, and that's not a good example because them niggas are evil as fuck. Them niggas evil as fuck. But that's they tell people that they don't practice that shit. Is my point. That's a bad example. There are groups that study things. Okay, fuck, another bad. I was gonna say Judaism. That's another bad example. I'm naming all the fucking evil people to support. But still, though, they don't tell. There's sectioned, you know. There's a 1% of Catholicism. There's a 1% of Judaism. Those are the practitioners that do weird shit. They got their other people doing weird shit too, but they don't know it. But that's the same thing as Christianity. Niggas are doing all kinds of rituals and think that they're just practicing Christianity. You doing spells and rituals and all kinds of shit, and you just think you're a Christian. So it's like that with, you know, at least the Abrahamic religions. I don't know about that other stuff. A lot of those seem to be just like kind of practices like Buddhism, Taoism, and all those. But, you know, there's a lot of philosophy-based ones too. So, but I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that just because you study something to know what you're talking about, at the very least, that doesn't make you. You're not gonna go to hell for that. That wouldn't even make, if you know your history of your own belief system, you know, what else did King James write? If you know the history of your own belief system, what else did King James write? Because he has a version of the Bible, a very edited, doctored, fucked up version of the Bible, version of that story in general, stolen and recompiled to be some weird shit. But he also wrote a demon book. He wrote a grimoire. So if he can do that, and ain't nobody screaming he went to hell necessarily. I'm sure there are plenty of people that say it, but the masses don't say King James went to hell. Like, why the fuck are you? Why would you go to hell for it? Just to study it. You didn't even write it. You just reading it. It's just there's such a lack of wanting to attain gnosis or you know, wanting to actually know what you're arguing for or against or supporting or teaching. Like, it's really weird to watch, and once over, it's really weird that not many people talk about it. I really don't see many people talk about a lot of these things I talk about, and I'm not trying to like, oh, I'm fucking special, nigga. Like, that's weird to me. Because I'm not the only person that knows or sees this. I can't be. Being person. I'm so sick of that fucking word. Black's Law Dictionary will fuck your head up, by the way. Black's Law Dictionary will fuck your head up. You will actively start trying to not say specific words because you see how fucked up it is. Anyway, yeah, magic. I'm still researching. I'm still looking for physical magic, because if it's not some psychology or mental alchemy, or physical alchemy, because there's, you know, chemistry, basically. Alchemy is just chemistry. Organic chemistry, a lot of it, most of it. If it's not that, then it's some form of science, like crystal science, like geology, or frequency science, like levitating shit with sound. Like, these things were just, they did, most people didn't know what the fuck they were looking at, so they applied some mysticism or some crazy shit to it. But in reality, these were just sciences and psychology. It was before these things were developed and legal. You couldn't talk about psychology back then. They would fucking kill you, dog. You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't a thing yet. You get to talking like this, people start calling you a witch and all kinds of shit. Like, they couldn't say things out loud like that, so they had to come up with stories. Like, I see a video going around right now talking about the flying carpet and how that was most likely some technology with crystals and frequency, the flute and the crystals. Play a specific frequency with the flute, it resonates with the crystals, it floats the things that are encompassing that area. You know? And I'm not trying to take the mysticism or the fun parts, I don't know what to call it for people, but it seems like it's like fun, or I don't know, I call it LARPing, which maybe sounds mean, but if someone starts telling you these things, then why not adapt? You don't have to stop doing it, but it definitely makes things more open and less demonized. People will stop fighting about it and get over it easier, even though that's not really your fucking problem. It's just strange to me. Real weird to me. And you know, King Solomon, there's a mystery. That nigga supposedly had a ring that God gave him to do all kinds of crazy shit, but that could, again, just be some fucking technology that you don't know about. Like, it doesn't mean that that's definitely what it is, but it for damn sure doesn't mean that that's not what it is. There's plenty of shit you don't know about. That's not even, it has no mysticism tied to it whatsoever. The government just has set shit up to where they have shit now that you will not know about or see for at least 30 years. You may see it if they're testing it around you, or if they want you to know about it for some weird reason. They're real good with that social engineering shit. Them little droplets they do with technology is creepy as fuck to me, but that's how they move. Like, they got shit you won't know nothing about for 30 years. Starting today, you will not see it for 30 more years. You know, but I do see some people that speak, like God King Joshua, Rashad Jamal, I think even, of course, Rod Hayes. Like, there are people that have talked about some of this shit. Like, do you believe cold? Do you believe in winter? You know, because I don't, bruh. Like, if they already have ways of manipulating the weather that you know about that are public, what don't you know about? That's a question that people should be asking themselves all the time, especially when it comes to the principalities, the government. Like, if you know about this, then nigga, there's like 10 things you don't know about on large scales. And sometimes they release like videos or pictures or, you know, articles, whatever. And it's either positioned to be outlandish or it's positioned to be far in the future. This is just a concept right now. We haven't worked it out yet. Or a joke. But regardless to that, they tell the truth about a lot of shit. I don't know why they do that. I don't think they have to, like people think they do, but they do that. And if it doesn't take much. When people talk about this, they sound crazy, but then if you go look for yourself instead of just calling them crazy, you'll see that the shit they talk about is very, very real and not even hidden sometimes. There are cloud machines. There are factories that make clouds. It's not just the spraying up there that you see. Everybody thinks that all the clouds come from that. That's not true. There are cloud factories You can go find that yourself easily. I think a nigga made a video at work. A nigga made a video at work at a cloud factory. And then if you say that, people will be like, oh, he's just trolling. Nigga, he spent millions or trillions of dollars on a factory to say that he works at a cloud factory for a 30-second long TikTok? Nah. Nah. And then again, I talked about HARP, a few videos ago. Like, HARP can manipulate the weather, the temperature, all that shit. So, and just because you have just found out about it recently doesn't mean it's new. Because it's not. HARP is old as fuck. In fact, by that, I don't just mean like the 80s or the 70s like I talked about in that video. If you really want to be real about it, that's ancient technology. It's probably Tartarian technology that was already sitting there, and them niggas reverse engineered that shit. Like, this shit gets deep, bro. Like, it's just how much are you willing to actually study. I see all these people just want to be involved, but they don't actually want to study nothing. They don't want to read shit. They don't want to practice shit or do shit. I didn't just say all that stuff about magic because I found out that that's what it is. I tried it. I tried stuff. I tried a bunch of stuff. And then it made me mad as fuck. Then I heard somebody say, oh, this is just basically psychology. You're just accessing parts of your brain. I don't need to do magic to access parts of my brain. Nigga, like, if you do, then that's cool. But be upfront with that shit, because there are people that I'm sure have wasted years of life thinking that they just weren't at the mental level to do magic yet, and they just kept practicing and doing new shit and new rituals and blah 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 blah. And then one day somebody was like, some 33rd degree Mason or some shit was like, yeah, nigga, that's just psychology. That's fucked up, So I guess in that I'm kind of grateful, because in just a couple of months of looking into and doing some magic stuff, to realize, oh, this is just like, it's basically the same thing as like microdosing, or not literally, but it's like a concept. It's a psychology concept. It's a way to. These are all just ways to access parts of your brain. It's like doing ayahuasca. The way that you can go into an ayahuasca ceremony, or ibogaine, better yet, ibogaine. You can go into an ibogaine ritual or ceremony as a complete junkie. You do that ibogaine ritual, and it purges you, and you access parts of your brain through this psychedelic, and you are instantly healed. You are no longer a junkie. That doesn't mean that it's easy, or not, or painless, because it sounds fucked up, but that is, to me, that is magic, right? That is magic. In a better way than what a lot of people mean it, because still, that's just you taking a thing to let yourself go. Like, some people don't need to take something to let themselves go in that way. And you could argue, even the person like me who thinks that they can access all that stuff easily, I've done a bunch of mushrooms, I've done a bunch of acid, I've done a bunch of tripping, a bunch of hallucinogens and shit. So maybe it's because of that. But I really think even before that, I didn't have a problem with accessing emotions or versions of myself. I've always thought that was weird. Like, I have all these different versions of myself. I don't think it's weird anymore. I think it's strange that it was already there, that it was always there, though. I'm still trying to figure out what the fuck that means, but yeah, some people can just one day realize, this is a mask that I'm wearing. What's below that mask? Like, all of this shit is not to like make people feel like shit. It's just to so you can hear it. so you can hear it. This shit's about to end.